Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that's not of yourselves, it is the gift of the Most High, not of works, lest any man should boast. And before I get on with this video, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, the double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Yobakal from Great Millstone, Orlando. And just back with this quick hit on a few factors that inspired me to do this video. Something that the apostles mentioned a couple of Saturdays ago at their camp teaching, as well as a very spiritual conversation that I had the opportunity of having with a beloved brother by the name of Quam out there in Tampa. Had the privilege of fellowshipping with those Akim, and, the mighty brother, like I said, we had a very spiritual conversation, and he told me something that I'll never forget, meeting the brother, because, you meet certain brothers. It always feels like home when you meet brothers from different places, But sometimes, you meet certain brothers and it's just one of those things where you instantly click. It's just one of those things. It's like a King David and a Jonathan type of relationship, off rip, so, definitely feel what the hell with the feeling. I know for sure, I knew this brother in the past. So, like I said, just something that he told me that stuck with me very hard. One of the most humbling things that I've ever heard in my life. Which again, it inspired me to do this, because to touch on a few points. One, dealing with humility, because at the end of the day, we don't know who we are, if we're of the elect. We don't know who we are. All right. And at the end of the day, we are all laboring for the same penny. At the end of the day, we just want to make it, So, of course, with that being said, it's not about status. It's not about how many precepts you know. All right. It's not about how many men you have under you, because you never know. In some cases is where, brothers that are elders, and that's why it's important to, how we deal with one another. Because even though you might be an elder or you might be over particular brothers, but you never know. The least brother of the camp, he might be over you. So you never know. And that's why we deal with one another accordingly, in an orderly fashion, which is also another point that I want to touch on in this video, dealing with order, which is like kryptonite to Jake, since Jake hates order, because, man, at the end of the day, we don't got it, bro. We ain't got it. Like the Apostle Paul said, it's only by grace. Matter of fact, let me grab that, because it ties into just a few words that I want to speak on. And that's why I started off with that here in Ephesians 2. Because, hey, it's about our faith. It's not about our works. There's plenty of men that we've seen come and go. Very mighty men at that. Cold with the precepts. Fiery spirit. But they're not here. You see, top men have come and have gone. All right. So it's not about our works, but our faith. And every brother has a different level of faith. Every brother has a measure to fill. And again, at the end of the day, man, we're just looking to make it, you know, and we can never forget that point. Salvation is the goal. And that's why it tells you in Revelation to not forget your first love. And that tends to happen a lot with Jake. They forget. They lose focus on why we've been called into this thing. And at the end of the day, we just want to make it. You see? So 1 Corinthians 15 in verse, I'm going to start at 9. For I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God, knowing that before Apostle Paul, he was known as Simon, and he was persecuting the church. All right, but you see, because the Lord calls brothers from all different walks of life. So with that being said, you know, that same zeal that Apostle Paul had when he was Simon, persecuting the church, so on and so forth, you know, he used it in righteousness. All right. And that's why in verse 10 it says, but by the grace of the Most High, I am what I am. And his grace, which was bestowed upon me, was not in vain. But I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Because you see, Apostle Paul, he wasn't even a part of the 12. But even with that being said, he labored more than the 12. The 12 apostles, you see. And here it is, you have Thomas, which when you go to here in St. John, which Thomas was one of the 12. And like the Apostle Paul, I'm sorry. Yeah. And that's the Spirit. For those that know, Apostle Tahar, Apostle Tahar mentioned how dealing with Thomas and how he was known as the doubting Thomas. Because again, you know, every brother has different levels of faith. All right. Now, Thomas, being one of the 12, didn't do as nearly as much as the Apostle Paul, but nevertheless, he was still one of the 12, considered one of the 12. St. John 10 and I'm sorry, St. John 20. St. John chapter 20. I'm going to start at 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Yahushua and stood in the midst and saith unto them, peace be unto you. Okay, yeah, so reading on, it says, and when he had said so, when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. This was after Yahushua was resurrected. It said, then said Yahushua to them, peace be unto you, as my Father hath sent me, even so send I you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and saith unto them, receive ye the Holy Spirit. Whosoever sins ye remit, they are remitted unto them. And whosoever sins ye retain, they are retained. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Yahushua came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, we have seen the Lord. But he said unto them, except I shall see in his hands, the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. So again, like the apostle Tahar has mentioned, doubting Thomas. All right. It said, and after 8 days, again his disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Yahushua, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst, and said, Peace be unto you. Then saith he to Thomas, Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach thither thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not and be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said unto him, My Lord and my power. Yahushua saith unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. So you see, all right, again, showing you that there's different levels of faith. And we all have a certain measure. You see, but again, showing you that, the Lord has an order, which Jake, like I said, it's like kryptonite to Jake. They don't want to be in order. All right, but nevertheless, the Lord does have an order. And this thing of ours, it is of being, in an orderly fashion. How we conduct ourselves on and off camera. You see, as a matter of fact, since I'm here, I'm going to jump up to verse 1. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene, early when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter, and to the other disciple, whom Yahushua loved. Talking about John. All right. John was Yahushua's favorite. Peter was Yahushua's favorite. Peter was Yahweh's favorite. All right. But nevertheless, there's still an order. All right. There's favorites within the favorites. And even within the favorites, there's favorites. It says, they have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they laid him. Peter therefore went forth and that other disciple, talking about John, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together. Because you see, they heard that dealing with Yahushua's tomb, something had happened. Yahushua wasn't there, so they ran to see what the occasion was. Verse 4, so they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, talking about John, and came first to the sepulchre. So John came to the sepulchre first. He outran Peter. But it says, verse 5, and he stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Why? Because there's an order to things. It's like, let's say, brothers go out to get something to eat. Let's say the head brother of the camp, he's the last to, he's the last brother behind, the other brothers. And let's say you being, or myself being, the least of the camp, last brother of the camp. And I just so happen to come up to the door first. Now this is something that comes naturally to me because this is what I've been taught. I come from a raising where, let's just say the general in the room comes in and everyone stands up, That's just the background that I come from. So it comes naturally for me, especially when it comes to the heads, the men above me, whether you're the first to the door, being that you're first to the door, naturally, hey, you let the heads in first, man. And that's just something that comes naturally to me, You let the heads go in first, you know. You allow the men that are over you, hey, you let them eat first, I refuse to eat unless the elder brothers, my head brothers, have gotten a plate. That's just me. I refuse, you know. Whenever we're about, hey, did the heads eat? That's just how I am, But with all that being said, this goes to show you order, because John, he waited for the Apostle Peter to come because he's the head. You see, even though John made it first, but nevertheless, hey, order. You see, order. So a little lesson on order, like I mentioned with the Apostle Paul, and again, because again, it's according to first and foremost predestination, all right. But it's not according to our works, all right. Because again, Apostle Paul, he did more work than the apostles, but he wasn't considered one of the 12, and that should go to show you a little lesson of humility. That should be a lesson of humility within itself. All right. Apostle Paul, he considered himself the least, he considered himself a nobody, So take into consideration, because that's one thing you don't want to do, especially when it comes to men that are over you, or just in general, you don't want to get too familiar with brothers, or breeze that familiarity, and that's something that you don't want, because the respect starts to wane, You start getting too familiar with a brother, especially a head brother, you tend to lose that respect. So Jeremiah 9, because again, like I said in the beginning, man, at the end of the day, we just want to make it. It's not about ranks. And we see that a lot in Israel. Guys, they desire the vainglory, titles. Everybody wants the top spot. Listen, at the end of the day, we just want to make it. We just want to make it, man. Jeremiah 9, in verse 23. Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. Because listen, at the end of the day, who are we, to show you how cold the Lord is? Everybody has a testimony, but I know for sure I wasn't looking. And, a lot of brothers were looking for truth. I wasn't looking. But nevertheless, the Lord still granted me the opportunity to be called. I always reflect and look back on my situation like, damn, because I was just simple, just one of those that's going with the flow, But thankfully, the Lord, called me because I wasn't looking. A lot of brothers were looking, searching. I wasn't looking, But like I said, every brother has their own testimony. And look at where you're at. Look at where you came from. Look at where you're going. Look at where you came from. Look at what you're at now. And look at where you're headed, And like I said, hey, we've seen plenty of great men, mighty men. But where are they at? They're not here. So who are we to glory? Who are we to, boast, rather? And look at what the Lord did to Esau. To a nation of people that he hates. Raised up the bases of men and put them on top. You see, it's all the Lord's power at the end of the day. So who are we to boast? So again, it says, thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, because it could be taken away. And like I read in Ephesians, with any gift, it can be taken away. So keep that in mind. All right. We're not owed anything. The Lord doesn't owe us a damn thing. We don't deserve this, you know. It says, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. In these things I delight, saith the Lord. So you see, just the fact that we have the names. Hey, you know, if you're going to glory in anything. If you're going to glory in anything, glory in that, man. Like I said, man, against all odds. Look at us individually, on a personal level, and look at us as a nation. But like I said, look at where we're going. Look at where we're headed. Glory in that. Glory in the fact that, hey, the Lord, He's granted us the opportunity in knowing His name, the ability to be able to call on His name. You know, other than that, we ain't shit. So what's there to glory about? You know? And again, man, hey, like elders say all the time, keep the main thing, man. All right. Jake loses sight, they lose focus. You know, again, don't forget your first love, because we just want to make it at the end of the day. So, you know, just a little lesson, you know, a little thing of humility, you know, order, you know, and hey, it's not of us. At the end of the day, just remember that it's not of us. You know, because hey, if the Lord left it us, if the Lord left it up to us, we'd be, hey, on them trial stands with you know, them Diddy stands, man. You know, that's where a lot of us would be. You know, on them Diddy trials, man, going to them Diddy parties and whatnot. If the Lord left it up to us, so you know, just hey, be grateful we got the names, man. Against all odds, we got the names. So Lord, one of this is edifying, giving all praises to Yahweh Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully elect.